The year was 2347, and humanity was nothing special in the eyes of the galaxy. For just over 100 years, humans had been part of the Galactic Concord. They were the new species, the young ones, the primitives who had barely learned to travel between stars. The elder races looked at humans the way a grown man might look at a child playing with toys. They were amusing at best and annoying at worst. The Galactic Concord was not a partnership of equals. It was a system of control. At its heart sat the Vethrani hegemony, an ancient race of reptilian beings who had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They were tall, cold, and cruel. Their scales were dark green, their eyes were yellow, and their hearts knew nothing of mercy. Every species in the Concord had learned to bow before them. Every species had learned that resistance meant death, and so the galaxy remained in order. A terrible order, but order all the same. Then came the day that changed everything. The human colony on Kepler 442b was a peaceful place. It sat on a green world at the edge of human space. Nearly 1.2 million people lived there. Farmers grew crops in the rich soil. Children went to school. Families sat down to dinner and talked about their days. It was a simple life, a good life. The Vethrani destroyed it in a single afternoon. A trade dispute had grown between human merchants and Vethrani officials. The humans had refused to pay extra taxes that they believed were unfair. It was a small matter, the kind of problem that should have been solved with words and agreements. But the Vethrani did not solve problems with words. They solved problems with fire. A fleet of Vethrani warships appeared in the sky above Kepler 442b. They gave no warning. They made no demands. They simply opened fire. In 3 hours, the colony was ash. Every man, woman, and child was dead. The green world became a black wasteland. The galaxy watched and said nothing. This was how things worked. This was the order of things. But humanity did not stay silent. Ambassador Kate Lawson stood in the great hall of the High Assembly. She was a woman of 50 years, with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had spent her life in service to Earth, climbing through the ranks of diplomacy with patience and skill. She had always believed that words could solve any problem. She had always believed in peace. Now she stood before 1,000 species, and her hands were shaking with rage. "You murdered our people," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was fire beneath it. "You killed 1.2 million innocent souls for a trade dispute. Children died in their beds. Families burned alive. And you call this justice?" The great hall was silent. 1,000 alien faces watched her with cold curiosity. Most of them had seen this before. Many times before. New species always complained when the Vethrani punished them. They always begged. They always cried. And then they always submitted. Sovereign Kethvorn rose from his throne. He was the leader of the Vethrani hegemony, the most powerful being in the galaxy. His scales were almost black with age, and golden rings hung from his horns. When he spoke, his voice was like stones grinding together. "Your people broke our laws," he said. "They were punished. This is the way of the Concord. If you wish to remain under our protection, you will accept this. You will learn your place." Kate Lawson did not look away. She stared directly into his yellow eyes. "We did not break any law," she said. "We asked for fair treatment. We asked for respect. And you answered with genocide." Kethvorn laughed. It was a horrible sound, like metal scraping against metal. "Respect?" he said. "You are insects. You have been among the stars for barely a moment. My people ruled this galaxy before your ancestors climbed down from trees. You do not ask for respect. You earn it through service, through obedience." He stepped forward, and his shadow fell over Kate like a dark cloud. "Here is my offer," he said. Humanity will surrender 12 of its colony worlds to the hegemony as tribute. You will pay additional taxes for the next 100 years. You will send workers to serve in our mines and factories. And you will never speak of Kepler 442b again. The hall was completely silent. Every species watched and waited. They had seen this before. The new species always accepted. They had no choice. Kate Lawson stood very still. She thought of the children who had died. She thought of the families who had burned. She thought of all the species in this hall who had bent their knees to tyrants because they were afraid. And she made a decision. No, she said. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Keth Voren blinked. For a moment, he seemed confused. No one had ever said that word to him before. What did you say? He asked. Kate Lawson raised her chin. Her voice was clear and strong. I said no. We will not surrender our worlds. We will not pay your tribute. We will not send our people to work as your slaves. And we will never forget what you did to our colony. Keth Voren's eyes narrowed. His claws dug into the stone floor. Then you choose extinction, he said. My fleets will burn every human world. Your species will be erased from history. You will be forgotten. Kate Lawson smiled. It was a cold smile, a dangerous smile. Then you have chosen your fate, she said. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent hall. Every eye watched her go. No one spoke. No one moved. At the door, she stopped and looked back one last time. You think we are weak because we are young, she said. You think we are afraid because we are small. But you have made a terrible mistake. You have given us something we never had before. You have given us a reason to fight. And then she was gone. The hall exploded into noise. 1,000 voices spoke at once. Some laughed at the foolish humans. Some whispered in fear. But all of them knew that something had changed. Something important. Back on Earth, Kate Lawson sent a single message to the United Earth Defense Council. It contained only 5 words. Prepare for war. They refused. The reply came in seconds. It was from Admiral Jack Morrison, the commander of all human military forces. His message was even shorter. We are ready. The galaxy did not know it yet, but the longest peace in history was about to end. The Vethrani had ruled for 10,000 years because no one had dared to challenge them. They had forgotten what war truly meant. They had forgotten what it meant to fight an enemy that would not surrender. They were about to remember, and they were about to learn that humanity was not like the other species. Humanity did not bow. Humanity did not break. Humanity fought. And when humanity fought, they fought to win. The galaxy watched in terror as humanity chose war, but the terror had only just begun. The message from Ambassador Kate Lawson reached Earth in minutes. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Council gathered in the deep bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. Leaders from every nation on Earth sat at the long table. Generals, admirals, presidents, and prime ministers all looked at one another with grim faces. Admiral Jack Morrison stood at the head of the table. He was 62 years old, with white hair cut short and a face lined with years of hard decisions. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Now that it had arrived, he felt strangely calm. The Vethrani have given us an ultimatum, he said. Surrender 12 colonies, pay tribute for 100 years, and send our people to work as slaves. The alternative is extinction. He paused and looked around the room. I need a vote. What does humanity choose? The vote was unanimous. Every hand rose for war. Not a single voice spoke for surrender. Admiral Morrison nodded slowly. Then we begin Operation Prometheus. What the galaxy did not know, what even most humans did not know, was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for a very long time. when humanity first joined the Galactic Concord 100 years ago. They saw immediately what kind of place it was. They watched the Vethrani bully and threaten. They watched smaller species bow and scrape. They watched the strong take from the weak without consequence, and they knew that one day the Vethrani would come for them. So humanity prepared in secret. They built shipyards hidden inside asteroids. They constructed factories beneath the ice of frozen moons. They designed weapons that the Concord had banned thousands of years ago. They trained soldiers in ways of fighting that the galaxy had forgotten. All of this happened in the shadows. The Vethrani spies saw nothing. The Concord monitors detected nothing. Humanity smiled and nodded and pretended to be harmless newcomers. While beneath the surface, they forged a war machine, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Lisa Chun was one of the scientists who made this possible. She was a xenobiologist, a person who studied alien life. For 30 years, she had traveled to Vethrani worlds under the cover of research missions. She had studied their bodies, their technology, their tactics, and their culture. She knew their weaknesses better than they knew themselves. Now she sat in a briefing room with Commander Derek Shaw, the head of human intelligence. Around them were screens showing data, maps, and images. The Vethrani have one great flaw, Lisa said. They have been undefeated for 10,000 years. They have never faced a real challenge. Their warfare is based on rules and traditions. They expect their enemies to fight the same way. Derek Shaw nodded. They also rely completely on their technology. Their ships are powerful but complicated. Their soldiers are well-equipped, but have not fought a real battle in generations. Lisa pulled up an image of a Vethrani warrior. They are larger and stronger than humans, but they are also slower. Their senses are not as sharp. And most importantly, they have never fought an enemy willing to sacrifice everything to win. Derek leaned forward. What do you recommend? Lisa smiled. It was not a nice smile. We fight dirty. We break every rule they expect us to follow. We hit them where they do not expect. We make them afraid. Meanwhile, Captain Nathan Cole received his orders aboard the warship Defiant. He was a young man, only 35, but he had been chosen to lead the first strike for a reason. He was clever, brave, and completely willing to do whatever it took to win. The Defiant was not like the beautiful ships of the elder races. It was ugly. It was brutal. It looked like a block of metal covered in weapons. Every part of it was designed for one purpose: destruction. Nathan looked at his crew. They were young, most of them. They had never seen real combat. But they had trained for years, and they knew what was at stake. You all know why we are here, he said. The Vethrani killed 1.2 million of our people. They want us to surrender. They want us to kneel. He paused. The bridge was silent. We are not going to kneel. We are going to show them what happens when you push humanity too far. We are going to teach them fear. Across human space, the preparations continued. Colonies went dark. Civilians were evacuated to hidden shelters deep underground. The lights went out on space stations. Ships disappeared into the darkness between stars. The Vethrani sent scouts to human space. They found nothing. Empty stations. Silent worlds. Abandoned outposts. They reported back to Sovereign Kethvorin that the humans were fleeing. They were running away in fear. Kethvorin laughed when he heard this. He had expected nothing less. Humans were weak. Humans were cowards. They had talked brave words in the assembly, but when faced with real power, they ran like all the others. He was wrong. So very wrong. The humans were not running. They were hiding. They were gathering their strength. They were waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Admiral Morrison spent every hour reviewing plans and checking preparations. The human fleet was smaller than the Vethrani Armada, but it was designed differently. Human ships were built to get close, to fight at short range, to board and capture enemy vessels. They carried weapons that could burn through any shield. They had fighters and bombers that could swarm like angry wasps. And they had something else. Something the Vethrani could not understand. They had soldiers willing to die for their species. Not because they were ordered to, but because they believed in what they were fighting for. Every man and woman in the human fleet had volunteered. They knew the odds. They knew that many of them would not survive. And they chose to fight anyway. In the final days before the battle, Admiral Morrison spoke to his fleet. "The Vethrani think this will be easy," he said. "They think they will sweep in and destroy us without a fight. They have been winning for so long that they have forgotten what losing feels like." He paused, and his voice grew hard. "We are going to remind them. We are going to show the entire galaxy what happens when you murder innocent people. We are going to teach every species in the Concord that there is a price for tyranny." Across 1,000 ships, crews listened in silence. Some were afraid. All of them were determined. "When this is over," Morrison continued, "the galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. They will know that we are not weak. We are not cowards. We are warriors. And we will never, ever surrender." The fleet moved into position. Ships drifted silently through the darkness of space, waiting for the enemy. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots sat in their fighters. Engineers made final adjustments to engines and shields. The trap was set. The bait was Earth itself. Somewhere in the distance, Vethrani ships were coming. 12,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled. They expected to find a broken enemy begging for mercy. Instead, they would find something else. They would find humanity waiting for them, ready to fight, ready to die, ready to win. The galaxy watched as the two forces moved toward each other. Most species expected a quick victory for the Vethrani. Some felt pity for the foolish humans. A few felt something else, something like hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone would finally stand up to the tyrants. Maybe someone would finally fight back. They were about to find out. The Vethrani Armada arrived at Earth on a cold morning in March. 12,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls gleamed silver and gold. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy. Each ship was the work of thousands of years of advancement, designed to inspire fear in anyone who saw it. Sovereign Kethvorin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was the largest ship in the galaxy, a floating fortress that had never known defeat. He looked at the small blue planet on his screens and felt nothing but contempt. "Open a channel to the humans," he ordered. "Let them hear their final chants." His voice boomed across all frequencies. Every human station, every ship, every city on Earth heard his words. "People of Earth, I am Sovereign Kethvorin of the Vethrani hegemony. You have refused our generous offer of peace. You have chosen to defy the natural order of the galaxy. For this crime, you will be destroyed." He paused, enjoying the moment. "However, I am merciful. Surrender now. Hand over your leaders. Accept our rule. And some of you may be allowed to live as servants of the hegemony. Refuse, and your world will burn as Kepler 442 be burned. You have 1 hour to decide." The channel closed. Kethvorin smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. He turned to his officers. "Begin scanning for their fleet. Find out where they are hiding so we can destroy them after we take their surrender." His officers worked at their stations. Minutes passed. Then one of them looked up with confusion on his face. "Sovereign, we cannot find their fleet. The planet and its moon show no military presence. Their space stations appear empty." Kethvorn frowned. They must be hiding somewhere. Keep scanning. More time passed. The hour was almost over. Still no sign of the human military dot. Then a new voice came over the communication channel. It was Admiral Jack Morrison. Sovereign Kethvorn, I have received your message. I have an answer for you. Kethvorn leaned forward. Speak, human. Tell me of your surrender. Morrison's voice was calm and cold. We do not kneel. For a moment, there was silence. Then the solar system came alive. From the dark side of the moon, ships appeared. Hundreds of them rose from hidden bases beneath the surface, their engines burning bright. From beneath the ice of Europa, more ships emerged. From hollowed-out asteroids, from hidden stations behind gas giants, from the shadows of comets and debris fields. The human fleet revealed itself, and it was not a small fleet. 2,000 warships formed around Earth. They were ugly and brutal. Nothing like the elegant Vethrani vessels. They were covered in weapons. Their hulls were thick with armor. They looked like tools of war, not works of art. Captain Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Defiant, at the head of the attack formation. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. All ships, he said over the fleet channel. Weapons free. Show them what we are made of. The Battle of Seoul began. Human ships surged forward at impossible speeds. The Vethrani, who expected their enemies to hang back and fight at long range, were caught off guard. Human vessels dove straight into their formations, firing every weapon at close range. Lieutenant Megan Torres coordinated the fighter wings. Thousands of small craft swarmed around the Vethrani ships like angry insects. They were fast and nimble, slipping through defensive fire that was designed to hit larger targets. They targeted engines and weapon systems, blinding the giant warships piece by piece. Commander Ashley Park led the artillery cruisers. Her ships hung back slightly, pouring endless fire into the Vethrani lines. Every shot was precise. Every blast found a target. But the Vethrani were not helpless. They had numbers and they had power. Their weapons tore through human shields. Ships exploded in balls of flame. Pilots died screaming as their fighters were torn apart. Captain Cole watched his fleet take losses. It hurt, but he did not waver. All boarding parties, launch now, he ordered. This was the part that terrified the Vethrani. Small craft detached from human warships and raced toward enemy vessels. They latched onto the hulls and cut through with plasma torches. Then human soldiers poured inside, armed with rifles and grenades. Sergeant Travis Grant led the assault on a Vethrani cruiser. His squad of 50 Marines fought through corridors designed for beings much larger than humans. The Vethrani soldiers were huge and strong, but they were slow. They expected enemies to stand and fight in neat formations. The humans did not fight in formations. They moved like water, flowing around corners, appearing from unexpected places. They threw grenades into rooms before entering. They shot from behind cover. They worked in teams, covering each other, never giving the enemy a clear target. Grant saw a Vethrani warrior raise its weapon. He rolled to the side, came up shooting, and put 3 rounds into its chest before it could fire. Another Marine tossed a grenade past the falling body. The explosion cleared the corridor ahead. "Move up," Grant shouted. "Engine room is 50 meters ahead. We take that, we take the ship." The boarding party spread across the Vethrani fleet. Ship after ship fell to human Marines. The Vethrani had not fought hand-to-hand in thousands of years. Their soldiers were not prepared for enemies who were willing to die as long as they could take the enemy with them on the Eternal Dominion. Sovereign Kethvorn watched in horror as his fleet crumbled. "This is impossible," he hissed. "They are primitives. They should not be able to do this." But the evidence was right in front of him. The elegant Vethrani formations were falling apart. Ships were exploding. Others were being captured. The disciplined orders of his officers were becoming desperate. Cries for help, and then the humans did something no one expected. A damaged human destroyer, its weapons gone and its engines failing, changed course. It flew directly toward a Vethrani battleship. The captain broadcast one final message. For Kepler 442b. The destroyer rammed the battleship at full speed. Both ships vanished in a massive explosion. Other human ships followed. Damaged vessels, crews who knew they were going to die anyway, chose to take as many enemies with them as possible. They did not surrender. They did not retreat. They became weapons themselves. Kethvorn had never seen anything like it. His people valued their lives. They retreated when the odds turned against them. They surrendered when defeat was certain. These humans did not retreat. These humans did not surrender. They fought to the last breath. They fought even when fighting made no sense. They fought like they had nothing to lose. 18 hours after the battle began, it was over. The Vethrani armada of 12,000 ships was reduced to scattered debris. Only a few hundred vessels remained, damaged and fleeing for deep space. The Eternal Dominion was surrounded, its engines dead, its weapons silent. Captain Cole led the boarding party onto the flagship himself. They found Sovereign Kethvorn on his throne, surrounded by the bodies of his guards. The ancient ruler looked at the humans standing before him with something like wonder. "What are you?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Cole looked at him with cold eyes. "We are humanity, and you should not have killed our people." They took the sovereign prisoner. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. The Vethrani hegemony, undefeated for 10,000 years, had lost. On 1,000 worlds, 1,000 species watched the footage of the battle. They saw the human ships ram their enemies. They saw the soldiers fight in corridors. They saw the impossible victory, and they felt something they had not felt in a very long time. They felt hope. The victory at Sol was just the beginning. The Vethrani hegemony did not surrender. They could not surrender. They ruled 1,000 star systems and commanded 100 client species. Their pride would not allow them to bow to creatures they considered inferior. Their power still stretched across half the galaxy, and so the war continued. Admiral Jack Morrison knew this would happen. He had planned for it. In the days after the Battle of Sol, he announced the Hydra Doctrine to his commanders. For every ship we lose, we build 2 more. For every colony they take, we establish 3 new ones. They think they can break us with losses. They are wrong. Every blow they land makes us stronger. The hidden shipyards work day and night. The factories beneath frozen moons ran without rest. Human worlds that had been peaceful farming colonies transformed into industrial powerhouses. Everyone worked. Everyone contributed. Everyone understood what was at stake. The war spread across the stars. Captain Nathan Cole, now promoted to Commodore, led the fleet in 12 major battles. He learned to read Vethrani tactics like a book. He knew when they would attack, where they would try to flank, how they would retreat. And he used that knowledge to destroy them again and again. The siege of Vethran Prime became legendary. Cole held a defensive line around a strategic gateway for 40 days. The Vethrani threw everything they had at him. He lost half his ships, but he did not break. On the 41st day, reinforcements arrived, and the Vethrani fleet was crushed between 2 human forces. Commander Ashley Park became known as the Ghost. She led a group of fast attack ships on raids deep behind enemy lines. They would appear without warning, destroy critical targets, and vanish before the enemy could respond. She destroyed the hegemony's primary shipyards in a single night, setting their production back by years. Megan Torres, now a captain herself, led fighter squadrons into the most dangerous missions. She was shot down twice and survived both times. Her pilots worshipped her. The Vethrani learned to fear the sight of her fighters appearing on their screens. But the war was not just about battles. It was about ideas. Ambassador Kate Lawson worked from a mobile station, always moving, always just ahead of enemy assassins who wanted her dead. She reached out to the species enslaved by the hegemony. She told them what humanity had done. She showed them that the Vethrani could be beaten. The Korvathi were the first to respond. They were a small species, forced to serve as laborers in Vethrani mines for 2,000 years. When Kate met with their secret leaders, they were afraid. If we rise up and fail, they will kill every one of us, the Korvathi leader said. Kate nodded. That is true. But if you do not rise up, you will be slaves forever. Your children will be slaves. Their children will be slaves. Is that really better than fighting for freedom? The Korvathi joined the war. They were not great warriors, but they knew the Vethrani infrastructure. They knew where the weak points were. They became saboteurs and spies, destroying from within what human fleets could not reach. Then the Alari joined. Then the Mandori. Then a dozen other species. The rebellion spread like fire across dry grass. Slave worlds rose up. Client species refused orders. The hegemony was fighting enemies on every front. Dr. Paul Hendricks led the weapons research teams. Every week, he and his scientists created something new. Better shields, faster engines, more powerful weapons. The Vethrani were ancient, but their technology had not changed in thousands of years. Why would it? They had never needed to improve. But humanity was always improving, always learning, always adapting. The war lasted 7 years. It was the longest and bloodiest conflict in galactic history. Humanity paid a terrible price. Entire colonies were destroyed. Millions of soldiers died. Civilians suffered through shortages and fear and loss. Every family knew someone who had given their life for the cause. But they did not stop. They could not stop. Major Travis Grant, the Marine who had led the first boarding actions at Seoul, became a symbol of human determination. He fought in every major ground campaign. He was wounded 9 times and refused to retire. When people asked him how he kept going, he always gave the same answer: because the job is not done yet. His greatest moment came at the liberation of Theta Crucis. It was a prison world, a place where the Vethrani sent those who disobeyed. Hundreds of thousands of beings from a dozen species were held there in terrible conditions. Grant led the assault personally. The Vethrani garrison was strong, but his Marines were stronger. They fought through the prison complex level by level, freeing prisoners as they went. In the deepest cell block, Grant found a group of Korvathi children. They had been born in the prison. They had never seen the sky. When the doors opened and they saw the human soldiers, they were terrified. Grant knelt down so he was at their level. He took off his helmet so they could see his face. "You are safe now," he said gently. "No one will hurt you anymore." The oldest child, a girl who could not have been more than 10, looked at him with wide eyes. "Why did you come for us?" she asked. "We are not your people." Grant smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "Because someone had to," he said. The image of Grant carrying Korvathi children out of the prison spread across the galaxy. It showed everyone what kind of beings humans really were. They did not fight just for themselves. They did not fight just for revenge. They fought for everyone who could not fight for themselves. As the 7th year of the war began, the tide had turned completely. The Vethrani hegemony was crumbling. Their fleets were broken. Their client species had abandoned them. Their home worlds were surrounded by enemies. Admiral Morrison knew the end was coming. But he also knew that the hardest part was yet to come. How do you end a war with an enemy that has ruled for 10,000 years? How do you defeat a species without becoming just as cruel as they were? He called his commanders together for a final meeting. We are about to win, he said. The Vethrani have nothing left. We could destroy them completely. We could wipe out their civilization the way they tried to wipe out ours. He paused and looked at each of them in turn. But that is not who we are. We did not fight this war to become monsters. We fought to show the galaxy that there is a better way. That the strong do not have to crush the weak. That justice is possible. Commodore Cole spoke up. Some of our people want revenge. They remember Kepler 442b. They remember all the friends they lost. Morrison nodded. I know, I remember too. But revenge is not the same as justice. If we destroy the Vethrani completely, we become no better than them. We have to find another way. The commanders were silent. They all knew he was right. But it was hard. So very hard. Captain Torres was the one who finally spoke. Then let us offer them what they never offered us, she said. A chance to surrender with honor. A chance to survive. And if they refuse, we end it. But we give them the choice. Morrison smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in years. That is exactly what we will do. The final battle was coming. And humanity would face it not as conquerors, but as liberators. The galaxy watched. And for the first time, they were not afraid of humans. They were proud of them. The final battle took place above Vethra, the sacred homeworld of the hegemony. For 10,000 years, no enemy fleet had ever reached this world. It was the heart of Vethrani power, the symbol of their eternal rule. Mountains of gold and temples of stone covered its surface. Billions of Vethrani lived there, secure in the knowledge that their empire would last forever. Now human warships filled the sky. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Liberty. He was older now, his hair completely white, his face marked with 7 years of war. But his eyes were still sharp, and his voice was still strong. Beside him stood the commanders who had fought through the long war. Commodore Nathan Cole, Captain Megan Torres, Colonel Travis Grant, finally promoted after his actions on Theta Crucis, and Ambassador Kate Lawson, who had worked tirelessly to build the alliance that made this moment possible. But they were not alone. Around the human fleet flew ships from a dozen species. Kovathi cruisers, small but fast. Ilari battle cruisers, bristling with weapons they had hidden from their masters for centuries. Mendori carriers, launching fighters in swarms. And many others. All the species who had found their courage, because humanity showed them the way. Across from this allied fleet stood the last of the Vethrani war machine. 2,000 ships remained, gathered to protect their homeworld. It was the largest force the hegemony could still assemble, but it was a shadow of what they once commanded. A new sovereign ruled the Vethrani now. Kethvara was the daughter of Kethvoran, who had died in prison 3 years into the war. She was younger than her father, and though she shared his scales and yellow eyes, there was something different in her face. She looked tired. She looked like someone who had watched everything she knew fall apart. Admiral Morrison opened the communication channel. Sovereign Kethvara. I am Admiral Jack Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force and the Allied Liberation Fleet. Your forces are outnumbered. Your empire has fallen. Your client species have joined us. This war is over. There was silence for a long moment. Then the sovereign's face appeared on the screen. She looked at Morrison with an expression that was hard to read. You could have destroyed us years ago, she said. Why did you not? Morrison thought about the question. He thought about Kepler 442b, about all the human lives lost, about the anger and grief that had driven them to fight. Because we did not want to become what we were fighting against, he said. Your father gave us an ultimatum 7 years ago. Surrender or die. We chose to fight. Now I'm giving you a different choice." He leaned forward. "Surrender with honor. Accept responsibility for what your people have done. Work with us to build a new galaxy where all species are equal. Or fight and watch your civilization end today. The choice is yours." Kethvara was silent for a long time. In the background, her officers waited for her decision. Some of them clearly wanted to fight to the death. Others looked at the allied fleet and saw only defeat. Finally, the sovereign spoke. "My father believed that strength was everything, that the strong had the right to rule the weak. That mercy was weakness." She paused. "I watched your species for 7 years. I watched you fight battles you should have lost. I watched you sacrifice yourselves for each other. I watched you free slaves who were not your people, protect civilians who were not your citizens, show mercy to enemies who had shown you none." Her voice grew softer. "I do not understand you. I do not understand how being so fragile can be so strong. But I have learned one thing." She bowed her head. "We were wrong. About everything." She gave the order. The Vethrani fleet stood down. The war was over. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed forever. The Galactic Concord was dissolved. In its place, the United Species Alliance was formed, built on principles that humanity had carried with them from Earth: equality, justice, freedom, the right of every species to determine their own future. Ambassador Kate Lawson helped write the founding charter. She insisted that the Vethrani be included, not as subjects, but as equals. Some of the allied species objected. They wanted revenge for thousands of years of oppression. Kate addressed their concerns directly. "I understand your anger," she said. "Humanity was angry too. We lost millions of our people. We suffered more than any species should have to suffer. But we did not fight this war so that we could become the new tyrants." She looked around the assembly hall at the 1,000 species gathered there. "If we punish the Vethrani the way they punished us, we prove that their way was right, that the strong should crush the weak. That mercy is foolishness. But if we offer them a place in our new galaxy, if we show them a better way, then we prove that everything they believed was wrong." It was not an easy argument to accept, but in the end, the Alliance agreed. The Vethrani would be held accountable for their crimes, that they would not be destroyed. They would be given a chance to change. At the signing ceremony, representatives from every species in the galaxy gathered. Admiral Morrison signed on behalf of humanity. Then he stepped back and let Ambassador Lawson take the podium. She was old now, her hair completely gray, her face lined with years of work and worry. But she stood straight, and her voice was clear. 50 years ago, she began, a Vethrani sovereign stood before an assembly much like this one and laughed at humanity. He called us insects. He said we would be forgotten. She smiled. He was wrong. We were not forgotten. And we did not forget why we fought. She looked at the Vethrani delegation. They met her eyes, and there was no hatred there. Only respect. We fought because our people were murdered, and no one cared. We fought because we were told to kneel, and we refused. We fought because we believed that there had to be a better way. She turned back to the assembly. But we did not fight alone. The Kovathi fought with us. The Ilari fought with us. The Mandori and 100 other species fought with us. Together, we showed the galaxy that tyranny can be defeated. That freedom is possible. That the future does not have to be like the past. A delegate from a species that had been enslaved for 2,000 years raised a hand. "Ambassador Lawson," he said, "I have a question that my people have wondered about for many years. When the Vethrani gave you their ultimatum, when they offered you the choice between slavery and extinction, why did you choose war? Submission would have been easier, safer. Why did you fight?" Kate Lawson smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was full of warmth. Because we remembered what you had forgotten, she said. Freedom is never given. It is taken. And once taken, it must be defended. The hall was silent. Every being there understood what she meant. They had all been slaves once, in one way or another. They had all forgotten that they could be free. Humanity had reminded them. The galaxy watched in terror as humanity chose war, Kate continued. And I understand why. War is terrible. We lost so much. We suffered so much. But in the end, we proved something important. She paused and looked at every face in the room. We proved that small species can stand against empires. That young civilizations can defeat ancient powers. That courage and sacrifice and determination can overcome any obstacle. She raised her head high. The Vethrani ruled for 10,000 years because everyone believed they could not be stopped. We showed the galaxy that belief was wrong. And now, together, we will build something better. A galaxy where every species has a voice. Where justice is real. Where freedom belongs to everyone. She stepped back from the podium. The assembly rose and applauded. Humans and Korvathi and Ilari and 100 other species stood together, united in a way that had never been possible before. Even the Vethrani stood. Even they applauded. Admiral Morrison found Kate after the ceremony. They stood by a window looking out at the stars. You did it, he said quietly. You actually did it. Kate shook her head. We did it. All of us. Every soldier who fought. Every civilian who worked. Every species who found the courage to stand with us. She looked at the stars, at the galaxy that would never be the same. The Vethrani thought we were weak because we were young. They thought we would break because we were small. They never understood what makes humanity strong. Morrison nodded. What is that? Kate smiled. We care about each other. Not just our own species. Everyone. When we see suffering, we cannot look away. When we see injustice, we have to act. That is our greatest weakness. And it is our greatest strength. The stars shone in the darkness. Billions of points of light, each one a world. Each world full of beings who now had a chance at freedom. The galaxy had watched in terror as humanity chose war, but in the end, they understood why Dot and the galaxy was never the same again.